Silo is back. After 18 months away, Season 3 has arrived, and it did not ease us in gently. Within the first few minutes, you already knew something was deeply wrong, even if you couldn't quite put your finger on what it was. The vitamins being slammed down on that table, that was no accident. That was the show telling you exactly where this season was going to live. In deception, in control, in the slow unraveling of someone who doesn't even know she's been unraveled. So let's get into it. Silo Season 3, Episode 1, everything that happened, everything that it means, and the questions that this episode has planted that are going to define the rest of this season. Before we go any further, everything from this point is going to contain full spoilers for the episode, so if you haven't watched it yet, now is the time to step away, go watch it, come back here, and we'll break it all down together. Let's start with Jules, because really, this episode belongs to her even when it feels like it doesn't. That's kind of the whole point. When we pick up with her, 3 months have passed since the events of the Season 2 finale. Silo 18 has settled into something that looks like stability. The rebellion has stopped. Supplies are returning to pre-rebellion levels. The Silo's atmosphere, which was on the verge of collapse during the chaos of the previous season, now carries something resembling hope. And sitting at the center of all of that hope is Juliet Nichols, the woman who went outside, survived, and came back. Except she doesn't remember any of it. The opening image of those vitamins being dropped down in front of her was the show planting its flag, because those weren't vitamins. They were memory suppression tablets, and Jules has been taking them every single day for 3 months without knowing what they actually were. She was told they were to help with recovery. She was told her body needed them after what she'd been through. And because she had no reason not to trust the people around her, she took them without question. The result is that Jules woke up from the most significant experience of her life, an experience that should have completely reshaped her understanding of the world she lives in, and she woke up hollow. She knows something happened. She can feel the edges of it. She has these flashes, these almost memories that she can't quite grab onto, and she doesn't know whether they're real or whether they're dreams. And the show communicates all of that brilliantly in that shot of her standing in front of the mirror, getting ready for the day, and then reaching over and turning out the light. It cuts to black the moment she does it. That wasn't just stylish filmmaking. That was the show telling you exactly what her inner world feels like right now. Every time she reaches for the truth, someone switches the light off. She was sworn in as mayor while she was unconscious. Think about that for a second. The people of Silo 18 chose her as their leader while she was out cold, and the reason makes complete sense when you understand the political reality of what came before. Bernard had taken over as interim authority during the chaos of Season 2, and the people had no love for him. Jules, on the other hand, had become something far more powerful than a leader. She'd become a symbol, the woman who went outside and came back, a living refutation of everything the founders had used to keep people in line. She didn't need to campaign, she just needed to exist. And that's exactly why Camille needed to control her. Because Jules, being a free-thinking, truth-knowing, fully autonomous version of herself, is the single most dangerous thing that could happen to the power structure of the silo. A Jules who remembers everything, who knows about the other 50 silos, who knows the outside world is survivable, who can walk up to any person in that building and tell them the truth. That Jules dismantles everything. So the solution was elegant in the most sinister way possible. Keep her alive. Keep her beloved. Keep her in the position of power. And make sure she never actually remembers anything that would make her dangerous. Jules is being used as a figurehead. She is the face of stability, the living proof that the system works, the reason people have stopped fighting. But the actual strings are being pulled by 2 people who have very different relationships with power and with her. The first is Camille, and what a transformation that character has undergone. She's now wearing the maroon robe of a counselor, the highest visible symbol of authority in the silo's ruling structure. This didn't come from an election or a promotion. It came from the algorithm. You'll remember from the end of Season 2 that Camille was summoned and spoken to privately by the algorithm. And whatever was said in that room, whatever was decided, the result was that she has now been elevated to a position that sits above nearly everyone else. She is the one reinforcing the false narrative to Jules. She is the one who orchestrated the cover story about Jules going to a nearby shelter, waiting there, finding a suit by chance, and making her way back. She served Jules fake helmet cam footage to try to make that story stick. And she's the one who, when Jules started showing signs of remembering things, went straight back to the algorithm and had the dosage of the suppression medication doubled. Then there's Robert Sims, now the judge of the silo, which gives him a very different kind of power than what Camille holds, and the episode reveals something that changes how we understand the end of Season 2 entirely. Bernard didn't die because of the fire. He survived the burns, at least long enough. And Sims killed him. He was executed. The algorithm almost certainly gave the order, and Sims carried it out. Bernard, for all of his moral flexibility and institutional loyalty, had reached the end of his usefulness. Or perhaps he knew something that made him dangerous to keep around. Either way, he's gone, and Sims is the one who ended him. What makes Sims fascinating in this episode is what's sitting just beneath the surface. He still holds a grudge against Jules for pointing a gun at his family. It doesn't matter that she can't remember it. He can. And in a dynamic where he has the authority of a judge and she has the symbolic weight of a mayor with no real power, that unresolved hatred is going to become important. Sims is not going to be a neutral actor in whatever happens to Jules next. Now here's where I have to stop and be honest with you, because this is the point in every silo breakdown where the real puzzle lovers show up. And if you're the kind of person who watches a show like this, not just to follow the story, but to actually think it through, to notice the details that the casual viewer misses, to connect things across episodes and seasons, then you already know why you're still here watching this. Because Silo rewards that. It always has. And if that's you, you should absolutely make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on, because every episode this season, I'm going to be doing exactly this. No filler, no padding, just the episode, what it means, and what it's setting up. That's the deal. Back to the episode. Let's talk about the state of the silo itself, because it isn't just Jules' story that the premiere is establishing. It's showing us a community that has achieved the appearance of peace while hiding several active fault lines underneath it. Ola is a new character and she's already doing something interesting. She's the kind of person who genuinely cares about the well-being of the silo and approaches her role with something resembling real empathy. Her conflict with Ed Harwood, who heads up the mines, gave the episode one of its more grounded and human moments. But Ed also delivered one of the episode's most significant pieces of information. Through his work mapping the tunnels and shafts that run through the structure, he's been able to estimate how long the silo has been standing. His conclusion is that it's been roughly 300 years. 300 years. Sit with that. The tunnels gave him that data. None of them lead anywhere useful. None of them are a way out. Except, and Ed hasn't found this yet, except for the access on level 14, which exists in every silo and connects to what's called the safeguard procedure. That's not a detail this episode explains outright, but it's there for people paying attention. Then there's Patrick Kennedy. He's not present in the episode, but his presence is felt everywhere. He leads a group called the Outsiders, people who wear masks and move through the silo spreading a message that the outside is survivable, and that what's being shown on the screens is a manipulation. When signs of his group start appearing in the silo, something shifts in Jules, because the message the Outsiders are spreading isn't wrong. She went out there. She survived. And hearing that message, even fragmented, even filtered through her suppressed memory, starts to crack something open in her. The moment that crystallizes, it is the note in the salmon chowder. At the end of the episode, after her dosage has already been increased, Jules is served a bowl. Inside it, beneath the surface, is a message. It tells her to flip the bowl, go to the marketplace at a specific time, and burn the note. She follows the instruction. She burns it. She's looking for answers, even if she doesn't fully understand why yet. She goes to Shirley first, and the interaction there is painful in a very specific way. Shirley is grieving. She's grieving a version of Jules that no longer seems to exist, a Jules who knew who she was and what she stood for. And the Jules standing in front of her is composed, professional, disconnected. That's the medication. That's the suppression. But Shirley doesn't know that, and her reaction has an edge of blame to it that feels misdirected. She's mourning the wrong thing. She should be furious at the system, not at Jules. The person who sent the note is almost certainly connected to Kennedy's group, and there's a strong possibility it was Lucas Carl, who was officially listed as missing and presumed dead, but whose body was never actually confirmed. Sending that note to Jules, someone who could blow the entire facade open if she were to remember, feels exactly like the kind of move a person in hiding with access to information would make. And then there's the other story, the one happening somewhere else entirely, somewhere in what appears to be the early 21st century. Congressman Daniel Keene. He appeared in the Season 2 finale in a brief scene that planted a seed, and now that seed is beginning to grow. He's meeting with a journalist named Helen Drew, and the backdrop of their conversation is escalating geopolitical tension. The United States has suffered a dirty bomb attack attributed to Iran, and retaliation is being planned. His sister Charles is a fighter pilot. She's going to be part of the strike, and when she and two other pilots climb to 50,000 feet, something happens that the show doesn't fully explain yet. There's a formation at that altitude, something that shouldn't be there, and her windscreen is suddenly covered in a thick, viscous substance. The other pilots, in planes without the same level of protection, burst into flames. Charles crash lands, survives, is recovered at the Heidi Stenson facility, and when Daniel comes to see her, she doesn't recognize him. Traumatic brain injury, memory loss. You see what the show is doing. Jules in the future, Charles in the past. Two women who each came too close to something they weren't supposed to know, and both of whom have had their memory taken from them as a result. One through deliberate pharmaceutical suppression, one through physical trauma at 50,000 feet. The subtle detail that confirms the time period of the Keene storyline is small but deliberate. There's a plastic straw in one of the shots, not a paper one, that pins it to roughly the late 20-teens or early 2020s, which, if Ed's estimate of 300 years is accurate, would place the construction and sealing of the silos somewhere between now and that period. What happened to Charles at altitude and how that connects to the silo construction, to the silos themselves, to the radiation outside, is something the show is going to build toward. The dirty bomb is the official explanation for the retaliation, but the episode is already asking you to question who actually caused what, in the same way that Fallout asked its audience to sit with the uncomfortable possibility that the devastation wasn't what official history said it was. Silo is doing the same thing with its own mythology. Was it really Iran? Was the cloud at 50,000 feet a defensive mechanism? A weapon? Something else entirely? This premiere did exactly what a great season opener should do. It re-established the world and the characters with enough economy that you're not sitting through 40 minutes of setup. It introduced new players and new pressures without overwhelming the story. It connected the internal silo politics to a much larger historical frame. And it ended in a way that makes the next episode feel genuinely necessary. Rebecca Ferguson is doing something remarkable with Jules this season, playing a character who is professionally competent and publicly composed, while internally fractured and searching is a precise piece of work. The blankness isn't emptiness, it's suppression. And the moments where something flickers through, where a memory almost surfaces, are the best moments she has in this episode. The casting of the actor who played Charlie Shelby in Peaky Blinders as Ed Harwood is exactly the kind of addition this show needed. He has a naturalistic weight to him, a sense that his character has been in these tunnels for years and knows every shaft and shadow in them. His confrontations with Ola already feel like they're going somewhere. The Peter Gabriel track over the credits, Come Talk to Me, landing exactly when Jules receives her invitation to seek the truth, was the kind of music supervision decision that reminds you this show understands itself. It didn't feel like a cue, it felt like a statement. So here's where we are. Jules is a mayor who holds no real power, medicated to forget everything that would make her dangerous, watched by cameras that were supposedly removed, and now in contact with someone who wants to show her what's actually happening. Sims is the judge, nursing a personal grudge and carrying out orders from an algorithm that none of the silo's inhabitants fully understand. Camille is the counselor in the maroon robe, the visible face of authority, and the person most actively managing the lie. The outsiders are in the walls, stealing equipment, spreading truth, and about to do something that will probably accelerate everything. And somewhere 300 years in the past, a congressman's sister has just come back from 50,000 feet with no memory of her brother, and nobody in power is going to tell them what she actually flew into. The questions this episode leaves you with are the questions that are going to drive the season. What does the algorithm actually want? Who built the 51 silos, and why were certain people selected? What was at 50,000 feet, and how does it connect to the outside being supposedly uninhabitable? Is Jules going to get her memory back before the people controlling her realize she's starting to crack? And when she does, what is she going to do with it? This is one of the more ambitious season premieres this show has produced. It's threading two timelines, a layered political structure, a protagonist who is essentially a prisoner in plain sight, and a geopolitical conspiracy that is only beginning to come into focus. And it's doing all of that while being visually stunning and emotionally coherent. That shot of the turnstile just spinning on its own, with the camera moving through it, was disorienting in exactly the right way. That's what this silo is, a mechanism that just keeps turning, with people moving through it, none of them certain of what the mechanism is actually for. We are in for a season. Now here's the thing. If you've made it this far, you are exactly the kind of viewer this show is made for. You're not watching to have the plot described back to you. You're watching to understand what the show is actually doing, why the choices are made the way they are, and what's being set up several episodes from now. That's what I do here, every single episode this season. Breakdowns that respect your intelligence and don't waste your time. So if you haven't hit subscribe yet, and you know you're going to be back here next week when episode 2 drops, just do it now, because next week the story deepens, and you'll want to be here when it does. Silo Season 3, Episode 1. A strong, purposeful start to what is shaping up to be the most intellectually ambitious run of episodes this show has attempted. The silos have been standing for 300 years. The people inside them still don't know why, and the woman who came closest to finding out has had the answer taken from her. But it's coming back. You can see it in the way she flipped that bowl over.